Welcome. So glad you're joining us today. And so what I'm going to do is like a super high level overview. We do have our information sessions that you can attend online. We also have a bunch of events scheduled through early July on our website. And then we'll be pushing out some more kind of in the next few weeks. In line with when we open our application. So a lot of exciting news to come, but we'll do a little bit of a sneak peek here. Stanford's pretty, but honestly, today is actually about you. And I think this is one of those frames of reference that I find one of the most helpful shifts for folks as they're applying to Stanford. So it's not about what does Stanford want to know or what do you think Stanford wants to know about you, or it's not about, hey, Stanford places a lot of people in these industries. It's not like that. It's actually, what is it that you care about? What are your goals? What are the things that you want to achieve? Everything from there backtracks to now that we have an understanding of the things that are important to you, let's start creating action items. Here are connections that we want to make sure that you're able to leverage. Here are resources, because everything does start with you. Fun fact, for our graduating classes, about 420-ish any given year, between full-time jobs and summer internships, you'll interact with anywhere between 350 to sometimes 425-ish different organizations. And so that really speaks to, hey, we're not a quote unquote pipeline into certain feeder industries or companies, but rather, given these things that you care about, how can we create this personalized experience so that you're able to leverage it for whatever goals you have in life? And so some of the things that we think we do really well and is expand your mindset, think boldly, build your community, lead from the heart, and then to define the future is like the consequence of what happens out of your time here. Expand your mindset. So the GSB is going to be your home base when you're here. Tons of classes. You could easily spend your whole time just taking classes here at the business school. But I'm looking out my window, so it's not a super helpful frame of reference. But you can take classes at the School of Engineering, the design school. Maybe you're interested in international policy. Go take a class from the law school, right? Who are these folks who are the experts in their field, who are defining what it means to research and practice in these areas? And go take classes with them. They're literally 5-10 minute walk from the GSB campus. And I think there's this extra special and kind of critical note of that. In my time here with Dean Levin, who is now President Levin of the university, he helped launch the Business, Government, and Society Initiative with a kind of explicit understanding that what is happening in the world happens at the nexus of these spaces. You all are going to be leaders in this space. So how do you navigate them, right? And even thinking about some of that global kind of like what's happening out in the world right now, how do you lead from a place kind of understanding that as a business leader, you are going to be impacted by policy and vice versa. The things that you do and your organization does will have implications for how society moves around you. And so how do you lead from a place that is kind of consistent with who you are, your values, your mission statements, and your purpose? And that's something that we're really trying to help folks understand by bringing together minds from all over campus, different lived experiences, different academic and career interests. And this is something that like helps elevate your time here. Because in the classroom, case method is a tried and true way of learning here. You'll have done about 300-ish cases by the time you graduate from Stanford. And it's up to faculty members to determine, okay, given our learning goals for this course, what is the best way to communicate that? So in managing growing enterprises, what does it mean when you have to go from being a startup founder where you're a little bit in everything to leading an organization of 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000? What are some of the skill sets and experiences and perspectives that you're gonna need to develop and evolve as your organization grows and you scale your own individual impact in there? Winning writing is another really popular one. And so it's taught by a former New York Times editor, kind of with the thought of how do we think about writing and as a way of like thought leadership, right? As a leader, you're gonna have to be able to communicate crisp, clean, and clear language out there, which, kind of your application process is a little bit of a taste of that. How do you communicate effectively the message of who you are in a confined space, right? right? Lots of different ways to kind of develop and consider what that looks like for you. The community is what you're probably going to hear a lot of our alumni talk about, not just the, hey, I learned as much about from my classmates as I did in the classroom. I think part of that comes from the foundations and frameworks that you're learning in the classroom, especially from kind of, these are some of the thought leaders who are shaping industries, whether it's search funds, now in the world of AI. They're both the researchers and the practitioners. All of your electives, so MBA 2, it's all electives, co-taught by kind of faculty members who have that theoretical and philosophical framework and industry practitioners. So you're getting the best of both worlds. And given those frameworks, it's these perspectives of your classmates and the folks around you who then you're workshopping and continuing to develop these ideas in the classroom and in the community. This is a living learning space, and a couple pieces help contribute to that. There's a student-held norm of grade non-disclosure. So we still have grades, we want you to pass, but we're not publishing class ranks. We're also not kind of sharing GPAs with recruiters, and it does a couple things. So one, maybe there's that computer science class you've always wanted to learn, but maybe you were a humanities major. Rather than being concerned about a grade and what that might mean for recruiting or something like that, go take that class at the School of Engineering. Like, this is the birthplace of computer science in a lot of ways. Go, there could be some greater learnings than there might be from just the fear of whatever the grade that looks like. Second is it never hurts you to help other people and vice versa. So given this freedom, like, this allows for that kind of connection of disparate ideas and different lived experiences to help elevate kind of how you see the world. Um, and so I think those two things also contribute to how people continue to develop and support each other to and through. And then the lead from the heart. This is the one where I think no matter what the outside world is kind of evolving into, 5 years ago, it was Bitcoin, blockchain, kind of the crypto space was kind of the hot thing. Sustainability has been an emerging force, and how do we think about this in so many dimensions of our lives? Um, AI, right? So these are spaces and industries and nuances, but in all of them, we're going to need people to lead. And how do you do it, again, in this place that is true to who you are? Remember, it all starts with you. The leadership development curriculum at Stanford is designed around the question, why should someone want to follow you? If you think about 2 or 3 people that you respect as leaders and the things that they do, it's probably going to be different for each of them. And that's going to be similar for you. There are going to be things that you do that really help elevate and help mobilize and motivate people towards some end goal. Let's identify that and help turn that into a superpower. This is also going to be 2 years where kind of perfect place to practice how do you give and receive critical feedback. In some of the classes, part of your grade is how have you been influential in the learning of those around you? Again, really thinking about how we contribute and kind of help each other rise to be the best versions of ourselves. This is an ongoing practice, full 2 years here and then beyond. This is your community for life. So that as you're out there, you might be the person kind of shaping what the next dimension of AI looks like, or whatever that next exciting, hot, high impact space looks like. We want to make sure that no matter what that looks like, you have some of these core fundamental skills, the network and support systems, so that you can be an effective leader no matter where tomorrow brings you. So that's kind of at the highest level, a little bit about Stanford. I have a feeling we'll be talking a little bit about the application process. And so I'm also going to do a little bit of preempting here. So I created a whole series of application workshops to talk you through not just kind of how I think about admissions as an admission officer, but also developing skills and exercises to help you through that reflective process. Growing up, nobody ever asked me like, oh, what's important to you? Or what is it you want to do? And in the admissions process, that is a very, very important part of what we do. And so I created these to help you along the way. So Nelson, yes, we do admit folks with higher work experience. If anything, work experience is in and of itself not kind of part of my admissions kind of thinking. Rather than how many years you've worked, I think given where you are in your career, like what kinds of footprints have you left behind and how? And I expand this pretty broadly to think about different industries, the resources and opportunities that might be available to you kind of fresh out of school versus in your career for 10 to 12, 15 years or whatever that looks like are going to be different. So rather than comparing apples to oranges, I'm trying to consider kind of where you are in life and what kinds of footprints have you left behind again. And there are definitely people here who have started straight out of undergrad, which is relatively rare. But we also have people who have 15 plus years of experience in the class and loving it. How are student clubs and extracurriculars integrated with classroom learning? And so they complement each other. And there are also going to be some classes where there are clear external kind of experiences. So action learning courses are one of them. And so there's a whole series of them. In the past, they have been in product management, working with like organizations as well as companies here in the Bay Area, kind of with the mentorship of faculty members on kind of topics that are relevant to that company. And so it depends on which class it is. Again, multiple modes of learning. So you'll probably get a whole variety. And again, it's like there's no expectation that you join things. It's, hey, here's a range of options. What do you care about? What do you want to get involved with? Let that change over your time here as you follow the things that kind of fuel you. All of that is a part of it here. The philosophy is student-led, staff-supported. If you care about it, there's a space for it here. And then there's another subset here. I see a couple questions about letters of recommendation. And so here's another pair of workshops I created explicitly around letters of recommendation. And part of that is one for you as applicants to help you understand what's useful to me and how I'm thinking through it. And then the second is I know not every recommender might be comfortable or this might be their first time writing a letter of recommendation. And rather than making you feel like you have to educate them, also knowing that sometimes the work relationships or the culture in the organization just that's not a thing. Feel free to share this link I created. It's letters of recommendation for recommenders. You can share that link, and I talk through the letters of recommendation and some tips and best practices for writers so that you don't have to do it yourself. And so hopefully that'll come in handy kind of on the journey. And then with that, I'll actually turn over moderation to Rahul. Sorry, I kind of usurped you in that role.
No problem at all. I can start choosing the most upvoted ones. So, everybody, please start upvoting if not already. I am an AI entrepreneur from India. How can the GSB's Startup Garage, Stanford Seed, and the broader University Maker resources propel my venture, and which founder credentials give me the best edge in GSB's highly competitive selection?
So I'm going to reframe this slightly. It sounds like you have actually already done some really great research into the different opportunities here. So I have a feeling you might already have a kernel of an idea. If anything, and this might sound funny, but one of our faculty members recently, and he is a faculty member who teaches in the AI space, this is a great place to test out ideas. I don't want anybody to feel like, A, you have to come here for entrepreneurship or that you have to have come from an entrepreneurship background. Folks of all different spaces and career interests thrive here. One of the things, though, is that in this reminding and kind of affirmation that the things that you care about are important, oftentimes there might be a need, and you're like, hey, this is important. Let me do something about it. And that's where that entrepreneurial spirit comes about. So, depending on how you want to approach that, whether it is in the hands on experience of kind of what does it mean to like find product market fit, how do you pitch to investors, to just kind of brainstorming with people around you, all of that stuff is here to what is the thought process so that I can tackle problems in the space that I know I'm going to go back to, right? And so I want to open it up that way. I have no preference for what background you're coming from either. And so this is coming to the question about years of experience, or rather, given where you are, your industry, the space that you're moving through, what have you done and how? What kinds of footprints have you left behind? For me, those are the things that are going to be most helpful in the application process. So if past behavior is one of the best indicators for future behavior, right? Tell me about a time when. And so other than that, it kind of, once you're here, pursue the things that you care about, talk about it, and then people will be like, oh, I know someone who, and that's where some of the organic kind of resource and support networks start to build. But really, again, this is a holistic review process, and maybe I should have started with that. There's no minimums, there's no benchmark, no testing, nothing is weighted more importantly than the other. You are a very dynamic, three-dimensional person. I am reading your entire application before making a kind of assessment and evaluation.
Thanks. So the next question is something that you have touched upon a little bit, but a little bit specific here. When evaluating recommendation letters, how much weight is placed on the title of the seniority of the recommender versus the direct experience? I have potential recommenders who are senior in their careers but less familiar with my day-to-day, and others who have worked closely with me but hold less senior title.
This is another one I have a feeling that you might already have a gut feeling, Georgia. So for us, no wait. And so the way that maybe to explain it a little better and to help you understand why. So in our request, we say, hey, we recommend a current direct supervisor. That's often because they have that tighter work relationship with you. And we ask all of our recommenders the same questions, right? How has this person performed relative to equally qualified peers? Tell us about a time when there was feedback. And is there anything else I should know? And oftentimes it's those people who are in like who working with you more immediately and slightly above have that landscape and understanding of what's happening at your level, so might have a few more frames of reference, and they're more likely to have worked with you and to provide anecdotes. And it's those anecdotes and examples, those are the things that are, again, helpful to me in the admissions process. If there is somebody senior in your organization who can speak to that relationship, great. But I place no preference or weight how senior or not the individual is. Really, it is about who are you, what kinds of footprints have you left behind, what are some of these examples that they're able to share.
So next question. Andrew is asking, how would you describe the average GSB MBA student as compared to that of the other MBAs? What differentiates them? What do you look for in your students?
Okay, so two questions here. One, I can't compare to other schools, but I will say something that I really appreciate in our students is like y'all do stuff. Like A, you care about things, and then B, you do things about them. Really, and that's where you get to some of these great ideas of things you want to do both in the classroom and outside. And so kind of that's one. That's not anything that I'm looking for per se. Again, for it's if past behavior is the best indicator for future behavior, there are no archetypes, there's no personas, there's no mold that I'm expecting anybody to try to fit into or that I'm kind of like reaching for. But end of the day, something that's consistent is you do stuff. Where in your life you're doing it doesn't matter, right? Whether it's in a club activity, at work, all of those things, you're the connecting factor there. So those are the skills and behaviors that you're going to demonstrate in other places in your life. So again, that's a part of the value of the holistic review process. I can search and kind of identify those and kind of utilize that in our admissions process, knowing that, hey, you're going to be bringing those perspectives into our classroom and community.
Thank you, Will. So Kronal is asking, how are the current visa holds going to impact the international students applying to GSB? Is the composition of international students intakes going to get impacted?
Great question. And so this is probably also going to be one of those less satisfying questions in that we are waiting to find out because with the visa pause, we've been working with our students since very early in the process, as early as we could, to start getting kind of the visa appointments settled. We're working with individuals as well to figure out what's the situation. This is very much kind of during COVID, it was very similar. We'd work one-on-one with students to ensure like, hey, what's happening? How can we support you? Let's action plan around that. Actively developing situation, but we really do care. And because of our class size, our ability to work with y'all kind of that intimately, I think kind of speaks volumes. Because international students are, I can't imagine the GSB without you all. And then in terms of what does this mean for the future? Again, we don't know because who knows what the policy will shape out to be next kind of cycle when we're making decisions. So that's another one of those unsatisfying, I can't predict the future, but we're closely monitoring it because we really do want to bring the best from all over the world here to campus.
So next question is from Shireen. She's please elaborate what GPA is needed for the full-time MBA program.
GPA is actually less helpful to me than you might think. I used to do undergrad admission. I would get transcripts where you'd see the GPA and you'd be like, oh, I wonder what's going on here. I'd go on the transcripts and maybe the C, D, or even Fs were in driver's ed. So that's a course here, driver's education, that a lot of high school students take here in the US. And it's like, well, you know what? Just don't have a car while you're here. You'll be fine. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually going into your transcript. I'm taking a look at what classes have you taken? How have you done in them? Sometimes it was a change in major that was the big unlock. And then once that happened, you started to perform really well. Or conversely, maybe there was a health situation that or family emergency that prevented you from sitting for exams, context is important to us. So if there are any situations like that that impacted your undergrad performance, please let us know in the additional information section, because then we'll take that into consideration. And then I'll take a look at testing, your work experience. Where are these data points or pieces of evidence that will help give me confidence that you're going to be able to thrive in the classroom when you're here on campus? And I think that is a holistic and more true representation of how I'm taking a look at your academic history. Mhm.
So the next question is about whether, if we're interested in talking with current students and recent graduates, how do you recommend we find those who are the most applicable to the questions we have?
So during the academic year and over the course of the summer, kind of we have meet a student events, and these are both on campus as well as online. So folk who might not be able to travel or don't have anybody in their immediate vicinity. This is one of the spaces where kind of we try to facilitate that. Part of it is just demand and interest in students' time. Kind of there's a mismatch there. So we're trying to find ways to connect around that. But kind of those might be some of the best ways. And we are also traveling around the world doing information sessions where we're going to have local alumni and sometimes current students, especially if they're kind of in the area for internships and they're available. Those can be other great spaces to connect.
Next question, can we take courses outside the GSB, maybe in another Stanford school, without having to enroll in a dual degree program?
Yes. And 80% of our students will do it, take at least one class somewhere else. And it doesn't have to necessarily even be in line with their quote unquote career interests. Sometimes it's just for like pure intellectual enrichment. I know someone who raised in Lebanon, and they said the most eye-opening class and kind of intellectually engaging and exciting one was a Middle Eastern studies class that they took because they wanted to understand what kind of Western academic dialogue around the space that they just knew so viscerally and so intimately, what that was like and how to engage with that, knowing that as they're out in the world, how people might respond and react to kind of their upbringing or those connotations might also help inform how they engage in kind and in a way that's productive. So I think there's a lot of really great ways to leverage the Stanford as a whole.
So next one is an anonymous question. Can you discuss the difference between round one and round two deadlines? If we should apply in two, or do we have to explain why you couldn't make round one?
Great. So 3 rounds of application for the MBA program. Round one is early September-ish. Round two is early January, and round three is April. If you are applying for deferred enrollment, so if you're a college senior or in your final year of like graduate study and you've gone all the way through, round three tends to work really well for you because you're applying for a future class, right? That's more of your senior year to do things. So that's kind of the one piece there. You can apply any round, but round three tends to work really well for you. If you're applying for direct enrollment, so to start the next fall, round one and round two are the way to go. We always do admit people in round three, but it tends to be a smaller group. No difference between round one or round two. And so that also includes financial aid. We practice need-based financial aid, so including things like prior year income, kind of currency valuation as well. No matter when you apply, if you are interested in financial aid, we'll say, hey, congratulations, welcome, you've been admitted. Kind of in your application portal, there's going to be more information for how to kind of take that next step. Recommendation is submit your application when you feel best about it, right? And so that is some nice level of freedom on that side. You do not have to worry about gaming kind of financial aid opportunities or any of that. It really is when do you feel best set for yourself.
Another deferred MBA program related question. So I noticed that Stanford admits college seniors through a deferred MBA program, allowing them to secure us prior to gaining full-time work experience. Please provide some insight into how these applications are evaluated compared to the regular admission applications.
The weird, not weird, weird is probably also not the right word, but the thing that people don't always expect is we're actually using the same criteria, looking for the same things. Where it's different is that we know that you're coming from a different place in life. And so this is similar to the question about somebody who was 13, 14 years of work experience. I'm taking a look at, given where you are in your career, what have you done and how? So for a current college student, maybe it's internships, maybe you've left a footprint through clubs and organizations. Maybe it's through supporting your family or faith community, right? There's different spaces. And we know that you wouldn't have kind of likely led, kind of managed teams in the traditional sense. So like, why expect that from you? Again, so really centering you as an individual in the application process versus kind of categories or an algorithm or anything like that. It really does center the individual. Mhm.
So I'm noticing a couple of questions that are quite similar. If Stanford has, GSB has a specific tracks,
Mhm.
healthcare management track, sustainability track, could you talk a little bit on that?
We're a general management degree. And I think there's some real, even though it feels like, oh, I don't have a specialization, am I at a disadvantage? Rather, I think about it this way. You're going to have many different career pivots along the way. So there's going to be the core curriculum that you start with your MBA 1 year that creates some of those foundations, the culture, the language and terminology so that you can continue using your time here. You start to take electives, your winter quarter, your spring, you'll take maybe another one, and your MBA 2 year is all electives. Now that you have a chance to explore what's out there, develop some nuance and more hypotheses about either your career or academic interest you want to test out, in your MBA 2 year, that's where you really get to lean in and specialize in those spaces. And oftentimes, the things that people care about might bridge multiple things. So, like maybe it's social impact, tech equity. Rather than feeling like you have to decide one or the other, how do you blend the best of both worlds? And knowing that many things do live in that intersection of those spaces. To the question earlier about 80% of our students will take at least one class somewhere else on campus, kind of bridging that, allowing for some of that deep specialization. There's cross-listed courses. And again, it's like that it all starts with you and that other student kind of philosophy that we have here of student-led, staff-supported. What are your passions and interests? And now how can we work backwards to create experiences to really elevate that? I think that's the spirit here.
So Felipe is asking, what's the best moment to visit GSB?
Academic year. And so no question to ask. Summer is beautiful and or kind of the knowing that Southern Hemisphere it's opposite, but the mid-June to early September, that's summer here. So nobody's actually on campus, none of our MBA students. Our MSX program does start in July, and so you'll start to see kind of a little bit of a glimpse of student life there. But once the academic year starts, so September through end of May, basically, we'll do campus visits where you can sign up for class visit. You can sit in on classes. We have meet a student as well as campus tours with an admission officer so that you can bundle and make the most of it and get a feel for like what is the kind of like energy here on campus. And so that would be my recommendation for best time to come. It's pretty fluid. That said, come whenever you're able. It's an open campus. It's beautiful, though kind of the mood and energy might be a little bit different depending on when in the year you're here.
Next question is the full-time MBA program STEM designated?
Yes.
Just a
Sorry,
quick
that's the
one.
first time I had, yeah, that's the first time I had a short answer, so probably threw you for a loop there.
All right. So, how does the recruitment process go for international students? Do they get the support from the career development department and how?
So our career management center is super hands-on. My tip for everybody out there, no matter what school you're going to, check in with your management center early on, even if you're interested in entrepreneurship or something that might have a less traditional path or you don't think you're gonna need those resources. They actually, given where they are, they know like from the student communities who's gone where, what that network is. Hey, here's some people you might want to connect with. So always one of those really kind of rich resources, no matter what your kind of end game is. There are also folks in our center who kind of specialize and really love and are fueled by helping support people with international career kind of interests. And the way that we're organized here, we have different career advisors. They have different industry specialties. And, you can work with as many of them as you want because sometimes there's things that bridge interest. Sometimes there might just be like a advising style that clicks with you better. Great, work with those folks because they all support each other kind of behind the scenes as well. So no matter what and how you feel most comfortable accessing those resources, they're here. And they're really great people. And so the answer is yes, you will have a lot of support.
Thank you. So, a couple of questions regarding senior applicants applying for the full-time program at GSB. What are your thoughts on that, and how does age or seniority affect the possibility of acceptance? Mid age around 35, 30.
Age is not a factor in our admission process at all. Everybody has a different reason and time in life where school makes sense for you. So don't worry about what do you want me to know about you? What are some of your motivations and your understanding for, okay, given this goal that you have, why is business school and why is Stanford the right choice for you? And I think having kind of centering your interest and goals and then understanding how a school fits into that can be a really helpful way to do school research even beyond kind of the Stanford experience. And so that's the way to think about it. I also like to approach things from a kind of strengths philosophy. So kind of come into it like, hey, these are lived experiences, perspectives that because you have more of it to bring in, that's a wealth of contributions that you can bring into the classroom. And so rather than thinking about this as like, oh, I'm quote unquote older than the average, like I hate class profiles. I think they lead to the wrong impressions for folks out there. Those are outcomes, those are things that we're seeing kind of as a byproduct of who applied in the past year. That those do not kind of by any means influence or impact how I'm viewing your application. Like I care about you as an individual.
So, as an international student, how does applying for financial aid impact my application? Is the next question from Sonic.
It does not at all. So our application process is need blind. So when I'm making my admission decisions, I do not, and I'm not paying attention to, or I'm not even thinking about how you might be funding your time here. Once you're admitted, our applicate or our financial aid is fully need based. So based on things like prior income, assets, family, are you supporting extended family, currency valuation, all of those are taken into consideration to figure out, okay, given kind of your individual circumstances, how much support do you need to make the GSB realistic? And so those are going to be two separate processes, which I think was really great for folks who are here.
So, hi, Will. Thank you for your response thus far. From Gemba, can we use both GRE and GMAT test scores in the application process if we have completed both tests?
Yes, and I just care about which one ends up being the highest, but if you have them, let us know.
So, how does GSB look at candidates who have transitioned from corporate to family business and are looking to do an MBA to scale the organization?
Cool. Okay, and so to give a little bit more context with that, I have
Yes.
no, sorry, I have no judgment about career path or how or why you've gotten to kind of where you are. If anything, think about the work experience and your work history. There's the resume, which is like, what have you done, right? Being able to look backwards and kind of reflect on that. And then in the application itself, it's like there's more info like, what's that role, reason for leaving, and sometimes that can be really helpful in helping me understand kind of like why some of these decisions were made. I know earlier there was a note on like companies closing. That is a very real thing. And so help me understand the context of your world. And if it's a little bit more complex than that, additional information, bullet points, you can give me a timeline, whatever it takes to help kind of shape out and frame kind of your journey so it makes sense for you. I want to use the term quote unquote makes sense generally and very with a lot of grace out there. Things do not necessarily have to connect linearly. Sometimes life happens in chapters, that's okay. Rather than worrying about, okay, what does the line look like between these two milestones in my life? Help me understand, okay, well, tell me about that kind of connector. Like what happened? What was the decision-making process? Who are you because of these things and kind of directions that your life has taken? I care more about that versus, right? And so I'm not making any judgment calls kind of on decisions because sometimes those things are out of your control and you are doing the best with what life is handing to you. We want to honor and recognize that as well.
So Suruchi is asking, what is some of the most interesting essays you have come across for what matters to you and why question?
Most interesting does not always mean effective. And sometimes things are most interesting and memorable for reasons you don't want them to be memorable for. Kind of maybe the more helpful piece of advice here is write about something that like you care about, right? If you're like, hey, this is important. I want Will to know this about me. That's what you should be going for. Do not feel like it has to quote unquote stand out or it has to compare to anything else. As long as you feel like it's a good reflection of you, the things that you care about, the life that you have lived up to today, the words and language that you use as well. And so I want to frame it that way because AI and kind of having outside editors, right, can be helpful. And sometimes they can scrub the essence of you out of a piece of writing, right? And so I guess the takeaway tip here is figure out how you get ideas from in your head out into the world best. If you can just kind of write and type, awesome. If you think better while you're moving, right? Practice going on a walk, going on a jog, and then taking notes after for things that stuck with you. If you do better in conversation with somebody, have them take notes about things that stood out to them or record the conversation and transcribe it and see kind of what comes of it and kind of pull those pieces together in a way that makes sense for you later. Really try to understand what is it that makes it feel like you. And I think end of the day, on top of whatever kind of the admissions piece, like I'm not judging, I'm not grading, I'm not saying is this a good or a bad essay. If anything, these reflections can also come in really helpful in shaping what are the things that are important to you? How do those guide, like how does that brighten the North Star that guides you in choosing between different options, life path, and really centering on the things that you feel are important to you? So there are some other kind of additional benefits there.
So whether they can apply or who have already done an MBA or a master's program before, what do they need to show to distinguish themselves in the applications?
I just clarify why you want to come back for an MBA. We do have people who do it, but just knowing that sometimes MBAs are 1 year, maybe there's opportunities that you didn't have, right? As long as there's some clarity around that, that's you did the right thing. And that can come either in the why Stanford, maybe it's additional information. Just communicate it somewhere to help me understand, like, okay, why would you go back? And why does it make sense for you?
So somebody is asking, how are you viewing the GMAT focus test? Are you referencing the conversion chart on the MBA.com website?
It's a test. And so we are understanding it kind of in the context of that test. So again, step back and give a little bit more perspective is testing is just one of many different potential places I can learn about kind of preparation to thrive in the classroom here. And for folks that are out there, start early because if you want to retake it, there is a little window of time that you have to wait before you can do that. And so give yourself enough kind of freedom so that you have that option. And then if you don't want to take it again, that's at least you gave yourself that chance. The other part of that is for folks who might have learning or accommodations in, especially in college or whatever you might need them, there is a process to request accommodations for testing. That process can take a while, including documentation and back and forth. So give yourself enough time to be able to explore what that looks like, because I want to make sure that you have the right resources and bases to be able to do your best work. And then again, additional information section can come in handy. Maybe you weren't able to secure them in time, but you had accommodations. Let me know. Just help me understand the context of what's going on so that I can kind of understand kind of really what's going on in your life.
How can the audience members reach out to you, Will, or the admissions team?
Yeah, email our main line. My team is managing it. So any questions you have, we're happy to support you. And again, we're doing events all over the world and online over the course of the next few months, including application workshops. So keep an eye out for those.
Let's take one last question before. What traits do you tend to see in GSB admins?
You care about stuff. You're curious, you want to learn about, and then you do stuff about it, right? And I think these are things that you all do kind of already. So knowing that the application process is literally just storytelling, tell me about these things. What do you care about? What are the things that you've done and how? And I think you're well on your way of like exemplifying of what it means to kind of really be an engaged and contributing member kind of the world.
Well, thank you, Will, for your.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you to everybody on your team for making this possible. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.